SOMNIPHOBIA.
Some disappearances leave behind a body, a motive, or at least a direction to follow. Yet this one left only a working car in the snow and a shelter that should have kept 5 men alive. In this episode, we turn our attention to 5 inseparable friends from Northern California who set out together on an ordinary winter night in 1978 and were never seen alive again. In time, the case became known simply as the Yuba County 5. For months, one of the 5 lay inside a Forest Service trailer that was stocked with a full year of food and a heater that needed only to be lit. He opened almost none of it. He never lit a fire. He starved. Nearly 50 years later, the food that no one ate and the fire that no one lit are still waiting for an answer that has never come. The story we explore this week turns on the simplest of ideas, that the people we love doing something ordinary will come home again. They were 5 young men from around Yuba City and Marysville: Ted Weiher, 32, Jack Madruga, 30, Bill Sterling, 29, Gary Mathias, 25, and Jackie Huett, the youngest, at 24. 4 of them lived with mild intellectual disabilities, while Mathias, an Army veteran discharged after a schizophrenia diagnosis, remained steady and reliable on his medication. Each of them still lived at home, and their parents, with plain and unembarrassed affection, simply called them the boys. They were inseparable. The very next morning, a Saturday in February 1978, they were due at a Special Olympics tournament whose winners would earn a trip to Disneyland. It was exactly the kind of morning that none of them would ever willingly have missed, not for anything. Yet on the evening of Friday, February 24th, 1978, the 5 took Madruga's turquoise Mercury Montego and drove 50 miles north to Chico. Near 10 o'clock, they stopped at Bear's Market, where they bought 2 pies, a few candy bars, 2 bottles of Pepsi, and a quart and a half of milk. Their last certain trace. And then, somewhere beyond that small pool of light at the edge of town, all 5 of them simply vanished. They did not come home that night. They were not at the tournament the following morning, and in 5 modest homes, 5 sets of parents began the long wait for boys who would never walk back through the door. On February 28th, the search found the Montego abandoned in shallow snow on the Oroville-Quincy Highway, 70 miles from home, at 4,400 feet. Nothing about it fit. The car was undamaged, with no dents and no scraped undercarriage despite the rough climb. It still held the quarter tank of fuel, and its engine caught at once when investigators hot-wired it. Yet the keys were gone, and every window had been rolled all the way down. Jack Madruga was a careful driver who loved that car, and would never have driven it up a mountain like that and simply walked away. Why 5 grown men would abandon a working vehicle and walk off into deep snow in the dark has never once been explained. That same night, a local man named Joseph Shones had driven up the very same road toward his cabin, only to become stranded just as, by his own account, a heart attack was beginning to take hold of him. He was 55. He would later say that he saw headlights up the road and heard voices and whistling carried thin across the freezing dark. In his telling, there were flashlight beams and figures moving at the very edge of the light, and, in the later versions of the story, a woman holding a baby. Then the lights went dark, the voices stopped, and the mountain was silent once again. But Joseph Shones was a gravely unreliable witness, whose account shifted with each retelling, and whose heart attack and freezing pain clouded everything he believed he had seen. No one can be certain. For weeks, the mountains kept their secret beneath deep snow. Until June came, the thaw began, and the searchers returned to the high country. On June 4th, Ted Weir's body was found inside a U.S. Forest Service trailer, nearly 20 miles from the abandoned car, lying on a bed as though he had simply lain down to rest. He had lost almost half of his 200 pounds. His beard suggested that he had survived for as long as 3 months, and his feet were frostbitten nearly to gangrene. His shoes were gone. The trailer held everything a person could possibly need to survive. 36 sea ration cans, a locker of dehydrated food enough for a year, dry matches, paperback books for kindling, and a butane heater. He opened almost none of it. The heater was never lit. And still, in a room full of food and warmth, Ted Weir slowly starved and froze to death. On a table nearby sat a gold watch that was not Ted Weir's, and no one has ever been able to say whose it was. Not far from the trailer, searchers found the scattered remains of 3 more of the men: Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, and Jackie Huett. That left a single man entirely unaccounted for. Gary Mathias was never found. Yet his own shoes were still in the trailer, which hinted that he may have taken Ted Weir's and walked back out, alone, into the wilderness. Where he went, no one knows. In the years since, investigators and researchers have offered several explanations, and each of them is worth weighing carefully in turn. The first is the simplest. It deserves to be taken seriously. In this reading, the men took a wrong turn, drove far further than they had meant to, and when the Montego stalled in the snow, they set out on foot, following snowcat tracks uphill in the hope of shelter, and died of exposure along the way. Weir's missing shoes, in this view, point to paradoxical undressing, a documented behavior in the final stages of hypothermia. But it has a limit. It is a careful and humane explanation, and much of it may well be true, yet it cannot explain the watch that belonged to no one, the year of food that no one ate, or the fire that no one ever lit. The families have never once accepted the idea of a simple accident. From the very beginning, the parents believed their boys had been led up there, or taken, and that whatever happened on that mountain was done to them, and not merely suffered. For decades, that belief carried no official weight, until, in 2020, the Yuba County Sheriff's Office quietly reclassified Gary Mathias as a likely victim of foul play. The memo that did so carried a single, chilling instruction. It was to be kept from his own family. And so it stayed hidden. For all that it cannot explain, the case is likened again and again to Russia's Dyatlov Pass, where 9 experienced hikers once left the safety of their tent and walked out into a killing cold for reasons no one has ever managed to settle. What this case asks of us is not belief, but the courage to sit with a question that will simply never close. 5 friends drove north for a basketball game, and somewhere in the dark, they turned toward a mountain that kept them. The food no one ate and the fire no one lit are still waiting for an answer that never comes. Don't be afraid. It's just us. Subscribe.